Good morning, my fellow yogic travelers. I'm mighty glad to be alive today, and I hope that you are too, as we continue to live, laugh, love, learn, linger, and live the life we love. When I do these Dharma talks, part of my motivation is to elevate the conversation, because conversation is intercourse for the soul, and we all need to be involved in this dialogue and learn to tell better stories, healing images, move ourselves out of the world as defined by medicine, politics, business, and their manic approaches to reality. Instead, we take the path of the Buddha. The Dharma doesn't suffer in comparison to any teaching. And so, if we take refuge in the Buddha, the enlightened qualities of the human mind, if we take refuge in the Dharma, the understanding of the cosmic law overarching everything, and if we take refuge in the Sangha, fellowship with the people on the path who are working on themselves, both in humanistic ways and also in dharmic ways, to liberate themselves from anything they're a slave to. Now, although I'm a yoga teacher, I'm not a posture teacher only, even though I come from a discipline that's known for impeccable articulation and alignment in the Iyengar tradition. But you don't want to just stand on your teacher's shoulders. You want to see from a completely different angle, even if that means sometimes leaving your own tradition. Sometimes it's hard to be recognized for the changes you've made in the family or friends who already know you. That's why they say a prophet is not without honor except in his own country. So a strange thing is that we all try to reject the negative things in our life instead of using them like recycling manure onto the garden or the field to make it fertile. Our soul grows through certain pathology. And so therapy ought to be a therapy of odd and eccentric ideas, because some of those things about ourselves that are not centered, they're eccentric, can be some of the best things about us. So certain things I have learned from my men's work is that when you show up somewhere, are you clear whether or not you're on burden or you're off burden? When you're on burden, you're carrying some heavy weight with you, and therefore when you come to class, you're coming there to get healed. But if you're off burden, and for whatever reason on the day that you're dealing with entering into sacred space or taking a workshop, but you're not so burdened by it, when you're off burden, then you come to learn to serve. And one of the interesting things, I always call it giving it the best one that you got, giving it the one with all your juice, because the paradox of Santosha, how to be content in a class where, if you're honest, you realize I couldn't really do what the teacher wanted me to do, or I only did it partially, or I only did it for a short amount of time. I couldn't hold it for the specified amount of time. So that's kind of discontent all the way through the class. And yet, at the end, even though you know I didn't do exactly what the teacher wanted, I leave feeling contentment because I learned to give the best that I'm capable of. And you're going to find that nothing is going to appease your inner hunger as much as giving the one with all your juice behind it. So don't forget, when you're speaking to your friends or your family, elevate the conversation, be bold. What would you say to them if you knew you couldn't hurt them by what you said? If your intention and articulation was so clear that it wouldn't hurt them? And then remember, in another way, that sometimes we pick the impossible lover, the one that in certain ways frustrates us, not just fulfills us, because they keep the wound open. And psychologically speaking, we learn to go back to the wound and mine it, because the wound is a womb through which we're able to give birth to something. So beware of too much interiorization. Do enough practices in silence and privacy to make sure that you have that sweet time in solitude where you exchange the desert of loneliness for the garden of solitude. And then get into extroversion. Not the extroversion where you lose yourself in crass materiality and consumerism, but to reanimate the world, to bring your spirituality to what the world needs, which is the gift that you can give and only you can give.